She is a commercial director who has won awards, a writer, a filmmaker, a digital artist, and a self-described dork. Well, Wandile, who spends a lot of time making movies, is of the opinion that creative people are extremely fortunate to be able to tell stories that end up in the homes of billions of people. Well, she recently made a short film for Vouge Magazine called Loba. Well, the film is a story that celebrates the essence of queer black witchcraft and freedom. Well, Wandile is in studio to tell us more. Good morning. Welcome to Morning Live.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, speak to us about the moment I just read queer witchcraft in a short film. That already just got my attention.
Oh, cool.
Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, how did you arrive here?
Well, the story of Loba is about a story about actually a witch who collects bones in the forest, and it makes like these beautiful laughing free women. And I wanted to center the story around that folklore, and then seeing it in a very South African context as well, and especially because like my subject is queer as well as I am queer, and I had a very queer also like set as well, and like I didn't want it to be incredibly like, oh my goodness, hey, I am like, this is a very queer film. I just wanted it to just be a celebration about like a free laughing woman, and who's also incredibly connected to her roots, which is her ancestral roots, which is
I mean, speak to us about why this story is relevant today.
I think it's incredibly relevant today because I feel as if like I don't know, it's about finding yourself like as a woman and being incredibly grounded in the fact that like you know yourself abundantly. And there's also this quote that I live by also by Roxane Gay, who's like, unruly women are coined as witches, whatever century you're in. So being unruly is like being incredibly centered within your freedom and being incredibly a laughing woman, essentially. That is, I think, the strongest thing I took from it as well. I think it's very important now because
there's so much.
There's so much. I think it's a very layered story, but I think it's important in any century, and I think it's just as important now.
And speak to us about the layering. I mean, there's so much that queer women are going through at the moment, and being true to themselves in a society that doesn't quite understand what they are going through. Speak to us about unpacking those layers in the film.
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest with you, I think also why I set it in this kind of landscape is also because like it was getting away from like urban spaces and like what kind of like I guess societal structures are in there in like urban spaces about like who queer women are and what queer women are, and then having like this woman in that kind of space kind of like also goes back to just where she is ancestrally, where she is accepted by mother, which is the earth, essentially, and she is the earth. And I don't know if I'm like answering your question right, but like I guess like people's ideas of like I guess queerness is incredibly, I don't know, it's very misconstrued, and I just wanted to have like a film where it's like it's not necessarily about like being incredibly queer, but it's just about a person who's just running freely in nature, and and she can do that because she's in nature.
Speak to us about, and speaking of nature and the landscape, speak to us about this beautiful setting that you found yourself in shooting this beautiful film.
I mean, since the story is wrapped around like this woman who because it's a folktale, and this woman who actually collects wolf bones and then sings to them, and once she sings to them, they become like these laughing free women. So it's like incredibly metaphoric and like very poetic, and it was very important for me to have it in a very beautiful landscape where like it breeds actual life, and it's not disturbed by actual human industrialization. So I definitely wanted to have a landscape where it's like it's also spoke to womanhood in a way as well. Like my work is always centered around womanhood. I love that idea of just like celebrating womanhood, and especially through a queer lens. So whatever I do, since I am a queer person, will always be through a queer lens as well. So I think the landscape was incredibly important in also describing what the witch is. The witch is,
And the challenges that came with working on this film, and talk to us about how you overcame those.
The challenges were the fact that it was self-funded, so I had to like use some of my savings, but then also the challenge was also the fact that like we had to hike quite a bit, like to get just one simple shot. Like some shots we only got in like 1 hour. We shot like for only just like 4 hours. So those were the challenges as well. But also making sure that the story came through. But luckily I had like such a lovely team that was working on it, and everybody believed in the story, which was incredibly lovely. To have people who supported this womanhood kind of story, which I really enjoyed.
What did it teach you about yourself and your love for making films and telling the stories about queer women?
I realized that like once you obsess over something, like things happen.
Right.
Yeah, so like just me obsessing over the story and being like, because I've been obsessed with the story throughout the whole entire year, but then like having just like an obsession over it and then like being incredibly interested in it, but then also like I've always just I've always wanted to celebrate like voices, especially queer women voices as well. So I learned that like this is exactly what I want to do, and I want to do more and bigger stuff and work with more black queer people and just like celebrate that. Yeah, in all aspects. Yeah.
What is the message, and what do you want your audience to take away from this film?
I just want to I want the audience to take away the fact that like women have the ability to go out there and be free. I know as cheesy and cliche as it is, but then like one of my favorite authors say that like go out into the woods, and if you don't, you never will be able to live. And I just want like I guess like more black queer women to just be like more in touch with like nature, because I feel as if like it's a huge aspect in who we are.
Yeah.
Like going back to the woods, and going back to the woods always means going back to your soul and going back to yourself and being grounded in yourself. And that's what I want people to take away from this film, to be honest.
And do you think that's your role as a filmmaker, you know, to change, you know, stereotypes, to change the narrative, and to, you know, change the way people think about queer and how women see themselves?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know if it's like a responsibility piece, just like the things that I gravitate towards too. Those are the stories I want to tell as well. They're not backed up by anything political. Well, everything is political, but it's not backed up by anything political. It's just an observation of a black woman being out in nature and also celebrating her ancestors.
And
so yeah,
we were talking off air about how when you were shooting this, you all discovered that she's also a sangoma.
Yes.
You know, did that contribute to how the film also turned out and how you saw it? Because the story was about, you know, initially about connecting with nature. Absolutely,
absolutely. I mean, it was so interesting for me to find out about that, because like she told me while we were shooting, and I was like, that's so lovely. And I mean, once the film actually comes out, like there's actually like these beautiful shots of her like being in a very beautiful trance between like this kind of like this girl who isn't Isangoma and this other woman who is Isangoma, and it's the same person, you know, and like there's like these beautiful moments where you oscillate between the two, and it's like it was very amazing to know Gutwi Sangoma, because it definitely also like she resonated with the story, and you can see she resonated with the story because of just how it came out too. And I was so happy about that as well. And she treated it in such a respectful way that it made me want to treat it in a very, well, obviously, because
it's your work.
You have to, but yeah.
And how soon can we expect the film out? What is the final? Where are you now in terms of filmmaking and the end of it?
So I'm still mastering the sound at the moment, and I'm still working on like the last few edits, and we've actually like got somebody to like kind of score to the film. It's very short, it's like 2 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, so we are planning on releasing it like sometime next week, I think. We're not too sure yet, but sometime next week we are sure. Yeah.
So will it be online, or how will it?
It definitely will be online.
Yeah.
Because we did think about having like physical people, but it's just too short of a film. So it's like, hey, 2 minutes and then bye.
It's online.
Yeah, it's going to be online, yeah.
All right, and you said July. Did you say July?
June.
June. Okay, so
Next
good
week,
luck
June.
with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Hey,
thank you so
I
much
wanted
for
to
the
ask
interview.
about the title, yes, before I let you go. The significance of that title and what does it mean?
So, yeah, La Loba, I think in the beginning, it's like La Loba is actually a story wrapped around like an old, hairy, fat ugly woman who lives in the woods.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the story is.
Yeah.
Who lives in the woods, and then like she collects wolf bones, and then when she sings over them, they become furry animals, and then they run off into the horizon as laughing free women. So it's a Mexican folk tale, but then I kind of wanted to reimagine it in a South African context with my ancestral, like Zulu ancestors in mind. So yeah, that's where it came from.
The title came from.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming through. You know, good luck with
Thank
the
you.
film.
Thank you.
Wandile, thank you so much for being in studio with
Thank
us. She's an award-winning filmmaker, speaking to us about La Loba, a short film she recently shot, and she's getting into the final touches of that. And it's about celebrating queer Black witchcraft.